Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of The Extra Point. As always, I'm your host, Roland Rainey. You can call me R2, and I'm always joined with my fellow compadres, Jeremy from Indiana and Justice from New York. And I tell you, there's a lot of interesting things that happen in Week 10, so let's jump right into our quick snap recap. Right out of the gate, Browns lose a pretty big game against the Pats, 45-7. Look, the Browns had a pretty great game against the Cincinnati Bengals, showed a combination of the pass and the run threat, and all of a sudden here they take one behind the woodshed against the Pats. Is this a moment for the Browns to be nervous?
Well, I definitely think it's a moment to elevate and to reflect on the future of what that team's going to look like. I'm still not convinced Baker Mayfield is ever going to be able to lead Cleveland to a championship. Yeah, they were a game away last year, but when they cannot run the ball like they did and had to abandon it as quickly as they did, you have to be able to lean on a quarterback who can make things happen. Baker Mayfield has not been able to make things happen. Yes, I understand he's banged up. He's had a shoulder injury, came out of that game with an apparent left foot injury. He's hoping to play this weekend, but I just don't see him ever being this elite quarterback. And with them talking about extensions here coming up, it's a conversation they need to have. It's a conversation they need to figure out real quick, because they're going to have to pick up his fifth-year option at the end of the year if they want to keep him. If they don't want to extend him right away, I feel like that's the route they probably will go, even though that franchise tag is going to be ridiculously high for a one-year rental. But they need to figure out whether they think Baker can be the guy going forward. I just don't think he will be.
Yeah, fellas, the Browns are in trouble. It's panic time for the Cleveland Browns. Look, this team has more problems than Baker Mayfield, in my opinion. That defense, they have studs on paper all over the field. Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, John Johnson, Jadeveon Clowney, who I haven't seen since probably week 2 or week 3. He's been completely, ghost for the past 7 or 8 weeks. And again, Baker Mayfield, he hasn't performed. He hasn't lifted this team when they needed it. They wanted to throw all this on Odell Beckham, saying he was the cancer in the locker room, this and that, when it's a team problem. It's a Baker problem. It's a defensive problem for this team. The defense is way too inconsistent, and Baker is way too inconsistent. I think Kareem Hunt's still on IR, so they're missing him. But this team needs to get it together quick. They have a roster to be a championship team, but it's just not clicking right now.
So do you not believe that right now with Chubb and hopefully with Kareem Hunt coming back, that with still a two-headed beast in the backfield, that they could not make a run towards the playoffs?
I do not, because teams that make it to the playoffs running the ball also have good, strong defenses to back that type of play up.
That's very true.
Does not have that style of defense. Like Justice said, they've got a lot of great players on paper, but they are not a good defensive unit. Defense is a team sport. When one side of the defense fails, the whole thing falls apart. There's lots of talent, but they're not playing together. They're not stopping the run. Patriots ran all over them. I don't see that changing this year.
Yeah, I think they have the roster to definitely make a run. We were talking about the Tampa Bay Bucks last year being finished mid-season when they went through their struggles. I'm not saying that the Tampa Bay Bucks, I'm not saying they have Tom Brady or anything like that. I'm just saying we've seen teams struggle middle of the year and then turn it on late. It's a game of runs pretty much. But, I think they have a chance. They have a roster to make a run, but I just don't think Baker Mayfield can get them over the top. I just don't think he has that type of transcendent talent to pick up when the team's struggling, and we saw that against the Patriots. Well,
there's a whole lot to be seen there. So Packers versus Seahawks. Look, Packers take that one 17-0, even though you definitely had the Seahawks starting quarterback come back. At the end of the day, Packers, Rodgers, they went ahead and take that one 17-0. Also, we have the Bucks versus the team with no name, the Washington football team. And lo and behold, they take that one 29-19. Look, Heineke's playing great football right now. He did a phenomenal job, and I'm going to continue to use your word, Jeremy. he has been a good steward of this football team. I mean, right now they're 3-6, but look, they're in the NFC East. That, with the exception of the Cowboys, really, being a phenomenal team this year. Right now, the Washington football team kind of falls with the rest of them, but they're playing good football right now. Why did they were able to take control of that game against the Bucs?
Yeah, I think it started in the trenches, really. I think they provided a good pass rush on Tom Brady. I thought they, moved him off his mark, which has always been the blueprint for, defending Tom Brady and going up against him. And the secondary held their own. They made plays. They looked like they were the more energized bunch. Look, I know Tampa Bay was missing Antonio Brown, but Mike Evans has to step up. Chris Godwin has to step up in those situations. And I think Tom Brady's missing Rob Gronkowski. He's been hurt pretty much, for weeks now. They couldn't get the running game going. They were playing from behind all game. They had some mistakes. It was a bad week. I can't keep up with all these upsets that are happening these past few weeks. It's been crazy. But the Washington football team, they played great. Good team win, but it's unfortunate for Chase Young tearing his ACL. Hope he gets back better. And let's see what the Washington football team can do this week.
Justice, I was just about ready to say it was a great game by Washington, but they paid a high price with Chase Young tearing his ACL and not being able to be out on the field the rest of the year. Roland, you made a great point. Heineke was very effective in the offense. They tried to run the ball. I think Gibson had over 20 carries on the ground. He punched it in for 2 touchdowns, only averaged like 3 yards a carry. But the difference was Heineke was able to exploit that leaky Tampa Bay secondary again. And, Richard Sherman went down in the pregame warm-up, and he's going to be out for a while now.
Again,
they took advantage of Tampa
I just
Bay.
want to make sure I bring that up. Again, this guy should stay retired. I'm sorry. I had to bring that up. I'm sorry, fans out there, but there are some things that just should be said, and he is done. Just go home and watch some football and enjoy your family.
But, yeah, Washington, just we're able to take advantages of, situations. They had some good play-action passes dialed up. Heineke distributed the ball to a bunch of different targets. I think he had 3 or 4 guys catch at least 4 balls. And it's tough to defend when you've got to account for individual pieces on the field when you already have a banged-up secondary. You're playing zone, so you don't get exploited in matchup situations, but he was able to exploit the zone coverage.
That he was. So kudos to them for taking it to the Bucs. Also, we had the Cowboys, America's team versus the Falcons. 43-3, just a good old-fashioned butt whipping there. But once again, the Falcons, I've said it once, I'll say it again. This team should blow up. They should start anew. I mean, right now, they're not even the best team in the state of Georgia. The best team in the state of Georgia right now is UGA. So, I mean, Falcons go back to the drawing board. Then we have the Panthers versus the Cardinals. Look, the Panthers take that one 34-10. Panthers playing some solid football right now. So, I mean, at least right now, they're sitting third in the NFC South. But now the focus is Cam Newton, right? The focus is about Cam taking the wheel and trying to drive this team into the postseason. What do you think about the way the Panthers are playing right now? I know Justice probably has a lot to say about this because of that one quarterback that is out right now with the Panthers, who used to be with the Jets. So what's your take on this one, Justice?
Yeah, I stated this earlier in the week, and I'll state it again right here. Sam Darnold will never start another game for the Carolina Panthers. It's done. It's over. The experiment failed. It's just not a good...
It's a pretty strong position there, Justice.
I'm just saying, it's Sam Darnold is who he is. I know they wanted to blame Adam Gase, who was a big problem, but this kid has always been turnover prone. It's who he is. It's in his DNA. Look, Cam Newton was the spark plug this team needed. They needed energy. They were down and out, it looked like. He came in. He provided a passing touchdown, a rushing touchdown. P.J. Walker played a solid game, as solid as it can be. No turnovers, I believe. So, and that defense, I can't say enough about it. My God, it's top 5, maybe even top 3 in the whole league. They have weapons up and down that defense. It was just a great team win, and they look re-energized to me.
Justice, you make a great point about the defense. I'm kind of going to reflect back to a comment I said about good teams that have great defenses and efficient offenses earlier in the podcast. You know, if Cam Newton can come in and provide a spark for them on offense while they are playing great defense, you know, Brian Burns is a great pass rusher, Shaq Thompson, we can go on and on and on, Stephon Gilmore, J.C. Horn. You know, this defense is what really is the Carolina identity right now, because they are ferocious and they are getting after the passer. If they can just score enough to be efficient, you know, on offense, they're one of those teams I feel like could make a kind of a dark horse run to the playoffs. They're playing good football. Like Roland said, Cam Newton came in, got a score through the air, got a score on the ground. They can present some interesting wrinkles. They're going to be a tough out for a lot of teams, you know, even though they came off a disappointing loss to the Patriots the week before.
Yeah, look, they're going here into Week 11, 5-5, third in the NFC South. Look, they're 2-0 in their division right now. So, I mean, to your point, if Cam can provide a spark, who knows what can come of this team. And then you have the Lions versus the Steelers, 16-16 in a tie. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, you're hearing it here on the Extra Point. You can end a game in a tie. Harris, please, let's never have another McNabb moment not knowing that you can end an NFL game in a tie. Because guess what just happened, Najee Harris? The game ended in a tie. Look, Steelers, Lions, they are who they are. You know, you got to give the Lions credit. At least they tied a game. I mean, it's a shocking one, but at least they tied a game. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our quick snap recap here on the Extra Point. There are games and there are teams that you just look at and truly believe they are going to make a run towards the playoffs. Right now, the Dallas Cowboys look like one of those teams, but there is another team out there. And this team is the team with the nice, shiny penny of a stadium, SoFi Stadium, the Rams. And for whatever reason, this beating that they took by the hands of the 49ers has now caught everyone's attention, mainly because it was clearly evident that they are unable to stop the run. Do you all believe the Rams are who they claim to be?
Yeah, I mean, they're still a big explosive team, but I mean, they have been exploited. You know, big teams have been able to run on them. You know, the Titans were able to run on them and bully them around on the offensive line. Same story this past week with the 49ers. 49ers came out and said, we're going to punch you in the mouth. That's exactly what they did. They controlled the tempo of the entire game. The Rams have a lot of flash, but there needs to be more punch behind that flash.
Look, they had a lot of things that happened in the offseason, right? So, look, they went ahead and hired defensive coordinator Raheem Morris, who replaced Brandon Staley. And I'm not saying that this all is on the shoulders of Morris, but as in any leadership position, the buck stops at the head guy's desk. And in this particular case, the buck stops with that defensive coordinator. Look, he took on the reins. He has 3 potential Hall of Fame players on that defense. But I want to highlight something here, Justice. In the season opener against the Chicago Bears, the running back, David Montgomery, he went off for 108 yards on 16 carries with a touchdown. It's the first game of the season. Probably nobody really thought much about that. But to Jeremy's point, the Titans had a field day. Now, granted, it's King Henry. King Henry does what King Henry does. But guess what? The Seahawks also had a field day. So I think what the 49ers did was their homework. They did their homework and they realized, whoa, wait a minute here. These guys are susceptible to the run, despite the fact you have Darnold plugging up the middle, despite the fact you went out and made a big splash trade for Von Miller. These guys are susceptible. For whatever reasons, they are giving up major gaps, especially B gap and C. I don't know why. I don't know if it's scheming or whatever have you, but they have to figure this out. And I'm looking at Justice, ladies and gentlemen, and he is ready to pounce on this topic. So I'm going to let him have it. Go ahead, Justice.
Oh, man, where do I begin, fellas? This is now 2 consecutive beatdown performances against the Rams. First the Titans and now the 49ers. I think this is a team that's high on the hype train right now. If they hear the hype, they traded for Von Miller, they traded for Odell Beckham. They're on cloud 9 right now, and they went to that game flat. And it was just a lot of self-inflicted wounds, the drop passes, one by Higbee that resulted in the pick 6. 3 drop passes by Van Jefferson. What was a touchdown? It was just a rough game for the Rams. I think they just came out flat. But going back to what you said about the run game and kind of focusing in on that, I think the biggest problem and what's been the biggest effect for this football team is the loss of Brandon Staley, who was the defensive coordinator last season, who's now with the Los Angeles Chargers. Brandon Staley, he made it a point to stop those wide zone running schemes that the 49ers love to run, and he showed it last year. They were top 3 in rush yards per game. I think they were top 5 or top 10 in rush yards total. They were the top defense in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken. So Brandon Staley did a fantastic job with that defensive line and with that secondary to combat those zone schemes that the 49ers excel in. And it's really showing up versus the run this year. Aaron Donald, he's still a star player, but he needs help right now. There's just no one to help him against that run. They lost John Johnson to the Browns, who was key in that secondary and key in the run game. It's just it's a layover for the Rams right now. They got caught up in the hype train. They're not the same team defensively, even with Jalen Ramsey, and they got exposed. And I am seriously worried about this team. They were crowned the Super Bowl champs before Week 1 even started with the roster on paper, and they're struggling right now. They can't find answers, and they need to get together quick because they have the talent. There's no more excuses. They traded all their draft capital for next year. They're looking at a 2 to 3 year window right now of a Super Bowl, if that. And after that 3rd year, I think they go into a deep depression because they have no draft capital right now. They haven't shown they're able to draft, and if they don't get that Super Bowl in the next 2 or 3 years, they could be one of the worst teams in the league because they haven't shown the ability to draft.
Here's one of the things that, to both of your points, and I think both of you make very valid points. One of the things that always concerns me about a team like this, when you look at their record, you kind of look at it and go, hey, look, 2 fluke games, trap games, whatever you want to call it, but yet, we're still at the top, and we still have the firepower to continue to press on in the season in hopes of making a run into the playoffs. I said it once and I'll say it again about Stafford. I really like him as a talent. However, he's a talent that you have to live and die with. When he's on fire, he is on fire, and he can easily put up a 430-yard game in a heartbeat. But when he's awful, interceptions are prone, and he tends to have the inability of getting into a groove, even when they go into the locker room and maybe come out with a different scheme. The reason why I bring that portion up is because now with their defense, if they don't correct this, if they don't correct it now, all it takes is a team to catch Stafford on a bad day. On a bad day, knowing that they can run the ball. And it's lights out. And this was the case with the 49ers game. They got him on, I won't call it a bad day, the right day for the 49ers, because Stafford was unable to throw the ball effectively. Guys were dropping the ball left and right. And yes, not having Woods on the field was significant. You got people like Higbee, who literally played the entire game, but he's not a threat. He's not someone that's going to change the course of the offense. And they only put Odell Beckham in almost as a decoy on a lot of slant routes, a lot of deep fade plays to open up the middle of the field. I'm guessing that in the next week or two, we're going to see him fully integrated in the offense, and maybe that changes, and maybe Stafford has another target he can get to. But when Stafford is not on, the one thing you need to have on is your defense. And if this defense does not fix those gaps, I hate to say it, I think you will start to see maybe a win here, a couple of losses there, and they could find themselves fighting their way into the playoffs versus being a dominant team thrusting into the playoffs. Now, speaking of quarterbacks, one of the quarterbacks out there that is quiet, low-key, and having, up to this juncture, a fairly solid season, and that is Mack Jones. Now, he did not go number one in the draft. However, he is doing some significant read-throughs. He's going through his progressions. His drop back is solid. He's firing off on that back leg. He's following through with his throws. The guy is looking solid, but he's quietly getting it done right now. What's your guys' thoughts on the way Mack Jones has been able to be successful as a rookie right now?
Well, I mean, he is the 5th quarterback taken in this NFL draft. You know, Trevor Lawrence went ahead of him. Justin Fields went ahead of him. Trey Lance went ahead of him. I mean, this guy has outplayed every single one of them up until this point. And it kind of goes back to my argument of, yeah, he wasn't the flashiest quarterback, but coming out of Alabama, you knew he was well coached. We saw the talent that he had. That's why I was arguing the 49ers should have taken Mack Jones at 3 instead of drafting Trey Lance. I think if Mack Jones would have been in San Fran, I think San Fran might have been in a better spot at this point, in all honesty. But getting back to Mack Jones himself, he's not making the mistakes that he did early in the season. He's executing the Patriot offense how it's supposed to be done. He's stepping up and making big plays when he wants to. And he went to a much better situation than some of these other quarterbacks, too. Zach Wilson went to the Jets. Trevor Lawrence went to the Jags. You know, Fields went to the Bears. All 3 of those guys did not go to great teams. You know, Mack Jones went to a situation where there was good talent around him, a strong defense, but clearly Mack Jones is playing some great football right now.
Yeah, Jeremy, I don't think Mack Jones going to the 49ers would make the 49ers a contender or even a playoff team for that matter. I think Mack Jones fell right into Bill Belichick and that Patriots way and that Patriots system. Roland asked a good question. Why has he been so successful? What's the cause of this? It's that he's done the simple things, and he's been asked to not do too much. And that's what we've seen from these other quarterbacks, is they're asked to do more than they're ready for right now. And the Patriots have handled Mack Jones perfectly because they have a great defense with him that can force turnovers and control the game. They have the system where they can beat man in zone with those crossing patterns and the quick passes. And Mack Jones has just flourished in that system. He's done the simple things. He showed touch on his balls. He hasn't, done anything crazy or anything like that. He's controlled his turnovers for the most part. So it was just a perfect fit for New England and Mack Jones. I still think he was the 5th best quarterback in that draft. I don't think he is better than the other 4. I just think he's in the better situation right now, and that's what it comes down to. What situation you get thrown into, what support system do you have around you, and he's taking advantage of it right now.
I think Mack Jones would actually argue with you on this one, Justice, especially looking at the Jags. Now, quote me if I'm wrong here. How many games have they won? I'm just for the audience here. How many games have the Jaguars won?
And real quick, and that's my point. If Mack Jones goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars, what does he do right there? What does he do there?
Well, to your very point, and I do see a lot of value in your argument in the fact that, look, Trevor Lawrence is being asked to do a lot right now. And ironically, under Urban Meyer, I really wish they'd kind of change up their scheme and really focus a little bit more on the run. Look, they do have a talented running back. And I don't see why, and I don't even know why, they haven't utilized him a lot more. For us, it was great to see that guy down at the East-West Shrine Bowl and see what he was able to do. He comes in and he does great things. Yes, you still have Laviska Shenault, with all of that being said, the Jacksonville Jaguars are asking a lot of Trevor Lawrence. The simple things that Mack Jones is doing is because of how they have set that offense up for him. So he's not doing anything above and beyond. Simple, plain, but effective. And that's the key. If you can do the simple things effective and do them over and over again, you can have success. And look, he is having success right now. But he's doing it very quietly. And right now, I would say the Patriots are right there in the thick of things.
I mean, I think you're looking at the Rookie of the Year. Honestly, if the Bengals continue on their current track where they keep laying some eggs, I think he will outpace votes for Jamar Chase. I think you could be looking at the Rookie of the Year. I know Justice is glaring at me right now, thinking, what are you talking about? You have got to be crazy. But, I mean, Mack Jones continues to elevate his play. Yes, Jamar Chase had a great start to his season, but he's had 2 or 3 bad games here in a row. And the Rookie of the Year is all about stats. And if you're winning, right now Mack Jones has the stats and they're playing winning football. The Bengals are not playing winning football. And Jamar Chase has had some down games. I'm just saying I think it will be an interesting race to finish off this year. Because honestly, these are the only 2 rookies I think that are really going to contend for Rookie of the Year. I think Najee Harris is coming along, but I don't think he's going to end up ever doing enough to really supplant these 2 guys.
Yeah, I'm with you all. And I tell you what, as we finish up this segment of the Extra Point by talking about the success of Mack Jones, the other thing I like about him is the way he carries himself on and off the field, the way he's conducting himself as a professional, the way he's leading his team. He's doing the simple things that you need to do as a rookie quarterback going into a Belichick system. So we wish him nothing but success in his career, and we'll see what it turns out to be at the end of the season. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to The Extra Point here on KLAA. And as always, I'm your host, Roland Rainey. And on behalf of my fellow colleagues, Jeremy from Indiana and Justice from New York, we will see you here again next week on The Extra Point.